Cole Henry in game one.
You saw the release? I told Florida State on Thursday that that was our rotation, so Bill put it out in the release, so I couldn't make an announcement today. Yeah, and I know the question is why. I don't really have a good answer for you. Henry and Marceau are our top two starters, and both games are equally important. Just decided to go with Henry first, so that's no knock on Landon Marceau, certainly. He's been pitching great baseball, and the second game is, a lot of people can point to the second game as being the most important game. You know, it's that pivotal game. It can win the series, it can split the series and set the stage for the final game. So a lot of times, you know, we've discussed it many times in our office, Alan and I, not just for this series, but through the years. Do you pitch your number one guy on Friday night, or do you pitch him on in the middle game? In '09, Lewis Coleman always pitched the middle game, and he was our All-American. You know, in the last few years, it seems that we've gone with our number one guy on Friday night when you had Alex Lang or Aaron Nola, whatever. So both of them are pitching, I believe, are pitching well, and both give us a chance. And you know, we decided to go with Cole in game one and Landon in game two because we had to make a decision. No real reason for it.
In your history of your career, did you ever think freshmen would be as prominent, you know, as they are now?
You know, I'll tell you this little story. Actually, back in 2002, when I was a coach at Notre Dame, we went to play in the Super Regional in Tallahassee against Florida State. We had won the regional, which we had hosted, and we were to play Florida State. They were the number one team in the country, 59-8. They had won the ACC regular season and tournament titles. They were unbeatable, and you know, by far the number one team in the country. And we beat them 2 out of 3 in the Super Regional with 2 freshmen starting pitchers that year. So that was kind of a year where I started to de-emphasize the importance of experience. Talent usually is better than having experience. And I have all the confidence in the world in Cole Henry and Landon Marceau. It's probably the first time since I've been at LSU that we've started 2 freshmen in a Super Regional. I'm guessing it is. I remember Aaron Nola started game 1 against Stony Brook in 12 when he was a freshman. Bill, do you remember any other times we've started a freshman? I don't know. But there are 2 best starting pitchers, so regardless of what their age is, you run them out there and see what they can do. I have a lot of confidence. I think our whole team has a great deal of confidence in both of those young men.
They're roommates and friends. How have you seen them grow closer and support each other throughout the season?
Well, they both had to deal with injuries this year, number one, so I'm sure that that's been a great support for each of them when either one of them was going through their tough times with the physical ailments. And I'm sure they encouraged each other, and I didn't even realize until, I think maybe Bill told me, or I read it somewhere, that it was last weekend, the first time both of them have started on the same weekend. I think it, yeah, this season. So, you know, I didn't even realize that, to be honest with you. So it's nice to have them both being able to start. And, you know, obviously they're not only our future, they're our present. And that's why we're giving them, you know, the ball. Outside of that, Wilson, I think you'd have to ask them how they've helped each other. You know, I'm not with them, you know, in private moments, of course. But, you know, I know when I was in college a couple of years ago that our roommates, you know, depended on each other a lot of times when things weren't going the greatest. And so I'm sure when they were both going through their ailments and their, you know, wondering, you know, what was going to happen to them, they probably were great support for each other.
It's kind of weird that this matchup is happening in Baton Rouge, not Omaha, considering I think both teams were top 10 preseason.
You know, you just never can predict how things are going to happen. You know, I just met with Kyle Peterson and the other guys that are broadcasting the game, and the first thing Kyle said to me was, "Never a doubt, right?" Yeah, so, you know, you just never know how things are going to happen. A lot of people didn't think Florida State would be in the postseason. I'm sure there were a lot of people that were wondering what was going to happen with LSU, and here we are now in a Super Regional. One of the 2 teams has to go to Omaha. Like I told our players, it might as well be us. You know, we had a 50% chance of getting there. So you know, I think it's so exciting. You know, I think everybody knows how I feel about Mike Martin. He's one of the true legends in my business. somebody I've always looked up to, and I told him today, he's a hero of mine. My father used to sit around the dinner table and talk about college baseball coaches, and he was a little young in those years when I was young enough to hear that talk, but as Mike's career has evolved and I've watched from a distance, he's become a hero. And obviously the guy's had a career for the ages. He's the winningest coach of any sport in the NCAA, in the history of the NCAA. Of course, baseball plays more games than most sports, so it's a little bit skewed. But, guy's had a phenomenal career. And I told him today what I told you all the other day, that it's an honor for me to be on the other side of the field. I think back to 2009 when I had the honor of coaching against Augie Garrido in the finals. I can still consider myself somewhat of a young coach, at least compared to Augie and Mike Martin I am. But just to be on the other side of the field against legends, is really, I don't know how else to say it. It's an honor, and we have our job to do. I told Mike today, I said, Mike, I love you to death, and I think you're the greatest, but I have my job to do, and you have your job to do. So, we can be cordial and be complimentary of each other, but, we're both going to go out there and try to win for our teams. So that's just the way it is.
What did he say back?
Pardon me?
What did he say back?
Very nice things. He's just such a gentleman, and that's the thing about Mike. I said, Mike, I'm not going to remember you for winning over 2,000 games. I'm going to remember you for the impact that you've had on humanity. And that's what we go into coaching for. Obviously we want to win. We have to win to keep our jobs. And, we have large fan bases and as administrations that want to see us win. And I'm not downplaying the importance of that, of course. Proud of the ones that we've had. I've been at it a few years myself, so but he was just as nice as could be. He just kind of made me feel good hearing the things that he said back to me. He's a big fan of my dad's too, so we talked a lot about my father and his impact on society as well.
You talk about being battle tested, say every week in the SEC is like a super regional. I heard in the media tent they said this is the first time ever 5 teams not from the league, from the same division, made it to a
That's
super regional.
something.
5 out of 6 or something.
Isn't that
5,
something?
7?
5 out of 7. Yeah. Wow. When you think about that, just take a second to let that digest. 5 teams out of 7 in the same division are in the super regional. But we're supposed to win them all, But you know what? In those other 4 cities, they all think they're supposed to win them all too. And so are they in College Station and Tuscaloosa or whoever else isn't in the super regional. It's an unbelievable league, But when you take the job at a place like LSU, you know what you're getting into. Nobody is forcing you to do something against your will, and it's exciting. It's fun. It's exhilarating. The highs are unbelievably high. The lows can be extremely low, and it's just the nature of what I do for a living. But I'm proud of our conference, and I think it does harden you when you have to compete against the teams that we compete with weekend in and weekend out. There's really not much that's going to intimidate you as you go into the NCAA tournament. And with all the respect in the world for Florida State, they have one of the great programs in the history of the game. But every weekend we're facing teams like Florida State. So, I don't think our guys are going to be intimidated. I think they're going to play loose and confident and go out there and let it rip, and hopefully we can score more runs than they do.
What makes Parrish and
like this with kind of like 3 closer types?
Honestly, Brody, I sometimes pinch myself thinking about it. I was just talking to those ESPN guys about it, that this is probably as strong a bullpen as I can ever remember having. Obviously moving Zach into that role strengthened that area of our team immensely, and Peterson and Fontenot and Beck and Hilliard and all the other guys that are contributing there, I think are doing a tremendous job. So, if we can get to that point in the game, I just feel very good about our chances to win. And those last outs are hard outs to get. I've had a lot of years where we couldn't get the last outs on a regular basis, and it affects your entire season. There's a huge difference between winning a close game and losing a close game. I mean, the actual, plays are very minute, but the feeling that you have after the game is over is a huge difference, winning by a run or losing by a run. And, this year we've been on the brink all year. We've played a lot of close games. I don't even know what our record is in the close games. I stopped looking because every time I looked at it, it made me more nervous. So I just stopped looking and figured take it as it comes. But I'm sure our record is very outstanding in close games, 1-run and 2-run games. So I think our bullpen has a lot to do with that.
What makes Parrish a tough guy to deal with?
Drew's a great competitor. I love that kid. He was our #1 starter for the USA team this past summer. And he just gave you everything he had every time he went out there. And he's just your typical crafty left-hander. He's not going to overpower you with his fastball. He's got a good curveball and a good changeup. He's going to use his fastball on both sides of the plate. But he's got that something extra about him, too, that intangible it factor. And I think the world of him. And, when my father passed away, he sent me a beautiful text message. And, he's just a really, really great kid. I loved coaching him last summer. And I was glad to see him today, and we gave each other a big hug. And, he's got his job to do tomorrow, and I'll have my job to do. And, hopefully we can prevail.
Do you think they went with Parrish first because of Samuel struggles with lefties this year?
No, I think that's been their order all year, if I'm not mistaken. He's been their #1 starter for a while. I think he was their #1 starter last year as well. I'm sure it didn't have anything to do with the makeup of our lineup.
Is that who you hugged on the field?
Pardon me?
Is that who you hugged on the field?
Yeah, Drew Parrish. Yeah, their starter tomorrow.
How much do you feel like kind of Saul and how well Zach's swinging the bat has changed the way you guys face lefties? I mean, I know it was an issue earlier in the year.
Yeah, it was a huge issue earlier in the year. And we still have, 5 left-handers every day in the lineup. And you just want your right-handers. And Brant Broussard's done some good things as well. So, we need Garza, we need Watson, we need Brant, we need Hal if he makes out, to be productive out, But our left-handed hitters have seen so many lefties this year now. I don't think it really is that major of a factor for them anymore. One of the reasons why left-handed hitters have so much trouble with left-handed pitchers, people ask me all the time, why is it that any different than right-handed batters facing right-handed pitchers? It's just that you don't face lefties as frequently. And so that's what makes it more unique for a left-handed hitter. But we've faced so many lefties this year that I don't think our guys really care anymore. Whoever it is, they're just going to go up there and compete as hard as they can. Antoine, until this year, I think his first 3 years, he hit for higher average against lefties than he did righties. This year, it's been a little bit the other direction, but now his average against lefties has picked up. And Josh is doing well against left-handers. And, Daniel's had his last year he did well against lefties. This year he's had his moments. Chris Reed, I don't think he even knows if the guy's right-handed or left-handed when he's out there. He's just so loose. He just goes up and just, lets it rip.
Have you ever gone this far in a postseason without a lefty of your own?
Well, I can't remember the last time we never had a lefty, so I guess the answer to that would be no. Our only left-hander is out for the year, so I can't remember us not having a lefty, so I'd have to say the answer is this would be the deepest we've ever gone without a lefty.
I mean, y'all got through that in the regular season. Does it make it more difficult now?
It makes it a little bit more challenging. Not any more now than it did before. I mean, there were times during the course of the year where certainly I wished I had a lefty out there. But some of our guys are pretty good against left-handers. Like, I'm not going to share with you which guys I think are the best guys because I don't want to give away the trade secrets, for my strategy during the game. But even though some guys are right-handed, they actually do pretty well against left-handed hitters because of what their repertoire of pitches is. And other guys are not as successful against lefties, so I try to avoid those matchups whenever I can. Sometimes it's not avoidable, and you just have to hope for the best, hope they hit it at somebody.
You talked about both Zach Hess and Antoine Duplantis said they've had some special moments here, but nothing trumped the Mississippi State Super Regional, the atmosphere and everything.
Yeah.
So a super regional atmosphere.
Yeah. I wish we were playing at night, like we did 2 years ago, Jacques. But, whatever reason, the NCAA has us playing at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I just hope the crowd has enough energy to fight through it and, and support the team because it does create a great atmosphere. And, that was pretty special, that bottom of the 8th inning and then the top of the 9th when Hess struck out there. Second baseman Stovall to end the game. That was pretty electric. You know, a lot has been made about this being Mike Martin's last games, you know, or potentially his last games. But as I told our team, my concern is that this is Antoine Duplantis' last games at the box, and Chris Reed, and Zach Hess, and Todd Peterson, and all the rest of them, Josh Smith, that, you know, are going to be gone after this year. So our focus is wanting to send those guys out, you know, with a real great experience here in the Super Regional, and I hope the fans are going to be a big part of that.
Coach, I'm up from Edinburgh, Texas.
How do you
Just
do?
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Baton
Thank
Rouge.
you. I want to ask you a little more on Garza. You know,
Okay.
obviously came off an injury in the fall, and
Yeah.
talk about his maturity both as a hitter and as a catcher.
Well, Saul's a big story on our team this year, and what a difference he's made for our team, especially over the last month or so. When we recruited him, we thought we were getting a special player, and he looked the part when we started fall practice, and then about 10 days into fall practice, he tore the meniscus in his knee, and because the tear was discovered to be the extension of an old tear, it wasn't a simple clip out the torn part. They had to suture it together. So what typically is a 5-week rehab turned out to be a 5-month rehab for him. So it just started him on a slow start. He wasn't able to squat into a catcher stance until mid-March. He didn't start swinging a bat until January. And so all he could do was DH, and he just got off to an awful start, you know. And not until really probably April, sometime in April or so, late April, did he really start to feel confident and comfortable with who he was as a ball player. But since he's done that, he's made a huge difference in our team. And you know, he's gotten so many clutch hits. He's received the ball well, blocks balls in the dirt, he handles the pitching staff. He's really taken our team to another level.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
A catcher can do that for a team, maybe more than some other positions.
Your catcher is the most important guy in the field, Rab, outside of your pitchers. When you think about it, the catcher is the only position where everybody's looking at him. Every other player has players looking at their back. And so what that player does really is the torch carrier for the team, and how he plays, his hustle, his caliber of play, his enthusiasm, his leadership. And it's the most difficult position to play. I'm a former shortstop, and I used to think shortstop was the most difficult position. Not even close to what a catcher has to do. The myriad of skills that he must possess, and his leadership traits and so forth. You can't win without a high caliber catcher. And I think that Saul has taken it to a much higher level, and because of that our team's played a lot better.